Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. This guy over here, that is Nick Rice.
Good morning, everyone.
Nice to see you, Nick.
We got to spend an extended day together yesterday doing a little marketing photo stuff for the show that the audience will see at some point. We're going to do that again today.
I put a picture of it. Do you see it? You don't follow me on Instagram.
I don't have an Instagram account.
I put a picture of it on Instagram. And people were very happy with the way we clean up. And a couple people said we are the best dressed show on television. So
those were Chris Carter's burner accounts.
Exactly.
That's one of his favorite
thank you for
lines.
writing that, CC. Made me feel good. Good stuff. All right, well, as comfortable as you are in your home this morning, so are the Celtics. Apparently, Game 5 shifted back to Boston last night, where the Celtics were undefeated at home all postseason, where the Celtics are still undefeated at home all postseason. That after beating the Cavs last night 96-83. The Boston Celtics are now 10-0 at TD Garden. A worn-down LeBron James dropped a game-high 26 points. Wasn't enough because the Celtics were led by rookie phenom Jason Tatum. He had 24 points. He had 17 boards. The Boston Celtics are now up 3-2 in this series. Here's Al Horford after the win.
It's just different in the playoffs. So you get on the road and you're just out there against, everybody else. And, here I just think that our guys just feel, comfortable and good. It's credit, the atmosphere that's here. It's just a lot of fun to play in right now.
I mean, I just enjoy, playing in the big moments, in the big games. I think that's, when I have the most fun. When things are on the line, and a lot of guys stepped up tonight, and I can't say it enough. We're one win away from going to the finals, especially after everything we've been through.
Now that's a playoff chain. I didn't know the difference between the regular season and the playoff chain. That is the playoff chain. CC, you watched the game. How were the Celtics able to beat the Cavs last night?
Well, for one, I think it's easy for me to see that as a team, the Celtics are a lot better team than the Cavs. And they have more things that they can go to. They have Jaylen Brown and Tatum. Either one of them can get off at any point in the game. They have Horford, who was far more aggressive. The adjustment, Brad Stevens, what is he going to do? He did two things, put Baines into the starting lineup. People say, well, he only scored 6 points. The energy that he brought and those points early, it really helped them get off to a fast start. What else were they going to do when they got LeBron, especially against Rozier and others? They were going to front LeBron no matter where he was. So you'd have to throw a high pass over, which would take time, and they were going to double team on the throw. So those are the two adjustments that they made. Making shots in the NBA is very, very important, and how they shot the ball behind the three-point line early. Those were the biggest differences. There are other subplots, the backcourt of the Cavs being terrible. I mean, J.R. Smith, of all four teams left, all right, there's 5 starters on each team. J.R. Smith is the worst starter of all the finals teams left. And last night was just even more evidence, all right? As Nick would say, man, right now I think JR washed up, right? Because he only looks a shell of himself when they won the championship a couple years ago and the JR that we even seen last year. So those are the things that I thought led the Celtics to the victory in game number 5.
To your point on JR, just to build off it, I'll go further. JR would not be in the rotation for any of the other 3 finals teams. Like, who's JR taking minutes from on Houston? Who's he taking minutes from on Golden State? Like, amazingly, you got more faith in Swaggy P than you do J.R. Smith right now for Golden State. He's certainly not taking minutes from anyone on Boston, but J.R. wasn't the reason they lost. He was part of the overall problem, which was there were 2 things going on yesterday. Because the Cavs, amazingly, defense wasn't bad. They was bad in the first quarter and then kept them in the game. They were even in the fourth quarter. They got 4 consecutive stops, but on the other end had 4 consecutive misses, and then 2 turnovers followed that up. Defense was fine. What happened yesterday was LeBron had a mediocre game by his standards, probably a subpar game by his standards, and everyone else was horrible. Kevin Love had 10 first-quarter points for the rest of the way. The 4 non-LeBron starters after the first quarter had 13 points in 67 minutes of action. George Hill and JR both make one shot. Ty Lue, who I was giving credit to with the adjustments he made. Why did Kyle Korver not play more? Well, Ty Lue says after the game, oh, well, his matchup's Semi Ojeleye, and he didn't get in the game, so that threw us for a loop. Come on, man. Like, this is the Eastern Conference Finals, one of the biggest games of your season. And then I'll go back to where I said earlier, LeBron didn't have the punch or the push that I expected him to have, knowing what he knew, which was we can essentially win the series tonight. And also once he saw, all right, we played a terrible first half. We're only down 11. They cut it under 10 multiple times in the second half. And it's not like LeBron was saving up something to try to have a closing kick. He just didn't have it last night. Now, he still gave you 26. He's led his team in points, rebounds, and assists. But that wasn't enough for what they needed yesterday.
You said yesterday this was not a must-win for the Cavs. It was a must-win for Boston.
Yes.
Can you talk about Jason Tatum and how impressive it was that he came out the way he did after having sort of a little bit of a subpar last couple of games in Cleveland?
Yeah, he played different on the road, but he's been probably their most consistent player through the regular season. He's even upped his scoring. That's one of the most impressive things about the Celtics, what they're doing. Their top three scorers, which have 6 years of NBA experience. Rozier.
6 years.
Yeah, Rozier's
That's
got
crazy.
3. Tatum, a rookie, and Jaylen Brown in his second year.
Yeah.
So that right there, poise, though. The moment wasn't too big for him. Great defense. This is the best defense I've seen Tatum play. So his overall contribution wasn't just that he was shooting the ball, that he was poised, but his ability to play defense, get deflections. I thought this was his most impressive defensive outing.
But this is why this is such a missed opportunity for Cleveland. Going into the game, what do you want to do? Hold Boston under 100. They did it. In fact, Boston didn't score more than 23 points in any quarter except for quarter one. What do you want to do? Make sure Terry Rozier still continues on the trend he had in Cleveland, which is not quite unplayable, but problematic for Boston. He was, I think, 3 for 15 in the game, and they were hunting him down on defense. Make sure Al Horford doesn't get off. Horford was good, but he was held to only 4 field goals made. You did all of those things, and you were dominated in that game from start to finish. There were times it looked like Cleveland could make a comeback, but there was no time in that game that Boston was not in full control of it. And it's not because the defense didn't show up. It's not because Boston went unconscious from 3. They did make 13 threes, but they took almost 40 of them. The
6 in the first quarter, though, were a huge difference.
Absolutely right.
Because it breeds so much confidence as you go into the second half of the game.
Halfway through this regular season, I asked both of you guys if it seemed like LeBron was asked to do too much on this team, that eventually would he just get tired and worn down, that physically he's doing a lot, emotionally he's sort of carrying the team, and the answer was a resounding, but that's what he does. He's good at it. He doesn't get tired. It seemed to be in his prime somehow in like year 15. I'll ask you again, in this postseason alone, is he being asked to do too much and just shoulder too much of the load?
No, that's who LeBron James is. That's the reason why he's so great. That's why there's a ravine between the best player in the world and the other best players. No, he had a bad day. To me, it looked like more of a respiratory thing. Some days you just can't breathe. To me, he had a hard time getting his breath. That's all part of being an athlete. Some mornings you wake up and you don't have your best stuff. But if he had some type of support,
right,
he would have been able to get through this game. But this is what LeBron James, and that's why his career has been so great. He's exceeded all expectations, even when he had the nickname the King and the heir apparent, the kid from Akron, who's going to bring a championship to Cleveland. On the cover of Sports Illustrated, he always exceeds expectations. But last night let you know, in the life of an athlete, can you have a bad day? And yeah, 26,
10, and 5.
That's
his bad day, and that is the burden. And I will not give LeBron a pass this morning, because I can't sit on television and say not only is he clearly the best player in the world, but he's the best player ever, and then hold him to a regular superstar standard. I could say, listen, we all thought Chris Paul had a pretty damn good Game 4 for the Rockets. He had 27, 2, and 4. We all think LeBron played really poorly. He had 26, 10, and 5. But that's fair. Chris Paul is playing by a different set of rules, just like Durant is, just like Steph is. That is the burden of being the best player in the league unanimously and one of the best players ever unanimously. He needed to be better yesterday. Period, point blank. He looked winded. The respiratory thing's interesting, see, because I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't experienced it, obviously.
Well,
he looked winded early.
Well, you could see the way he was breathing. Very seldom you ever see LeBron doubled over with his hands on his knees. A lot of times as a coach, you look at players on film and they train you. Watch for the guys that are grabbing their shorts. You know that they're tired. That's when you want to attack them. Also, when he went to the bench, several times he had some type of Kleenex or something that he was blowing his nose. You don't blow your nose in athletic competition unless you're having some type of respiratory or you're having a hard time breathing. That's what I saw. Not as an excuse. As a fan, an observer of the game, and a person who's been in competition, these are the things that you watch for. And also after the game. No one knows him better than Ty Lue. Ty Lue said in the press conference, he was winded. He looked gassed. Now, LeBron tried to go beyond that and try to, make it seem as if it wasn't a big deal, but his coach even noticed it.
I've said before that LeBron's uninjurable, and that appears through 15 years to be true. But he is not indefatigable. He's not someone that cannot get tired after the workload he's carried. We're just surprised when we see it. Now, they play in about 36 hours. I expect him to be as great as we've seen him throughout the majority of this postseason. That is the standard that he's set. But they needed a 40-point game from LeBron yesterday to win, given what the supporting cast did, and he didn't have it in him.
I know. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the luxury of getting a cold, so we're going to have to talk to him about that.
He doesn't.
No, he really doesn't. Coming up, a very serious story surrounding Milwaukee Bucks guard Sterling Brown. We'll talk about that next on First Things First.
At Buffalo Wild Wings, we'll admit that we often go overboard with our limited time offerings. We just can't help ourselves. Take our new signature sampler. For $15, you get wings and 3 shareable options, like fried pickles or cheese curds. Then there's our aptly named over-the-top nachos, a literal mountain of crispy tortilla chips loaded with your choice of pulled pork or honey barbecue chicken, corn, jalapenos, and more. Then top it all off with our new Platinum Margarita. Go overboard with us today at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Available for a limited time while supplies last. Please drink responsibly.
Back here on First Things First, some disturbing news to pass along. Milwaukee police released footage from January of an officer using a stun gun on Milwaukee Bucks rookie Sterling Brown. The incident stemmed from a dispute over a potential parking violation. Milwaukee's police chief has apologized to Brown for what he described as inappropriate actions taken by officers. Brown says he plans to file a lawsuit against the department. CC, I'll start with you. What was your reaction to this story and to the footage that we're watching here?
It's not too surprising for me. Most of my adult life, all of my life, I've been aware of bad situations as far as African Americans and police officers. It's been brought to my attention by my mother at a very, very young age, by my sisters and brothers. Then it became real, 1991. That's when we saw Rodney King. So I've been watching videos all my adult life of African Americans being harassed, beat, tased, all types of things, shot to death by officers of the law. So how do I feel about it? The only reason why I probably watched it was because I have to make comments about it on TV. Well, the only reason why they're making comments about it on TV is because he's a professional basketball player. So now we're going to try to act like, oh, we're going to care a little bit. Oh, the media, oh, the public, oh, we care about it because we're fans of sports. People don't care because you know what's going to happen today? Other blacks are going to go about their business and they're going to be harassed the way we have been harassed for a long, long time. The reality of that video is being black in America is totally different than being white in America. So I'm tired of looking at videos of the same thing in 2018 of something that I watched when I was younger as a young person, and I've been watching all my adult life. So people today will care, but ultimately it don't matter if black people care. It only matters if white people care. Because that's the reality that we live with, that I live with every day, that you don't have to live with. Your kids don't have to live with. All right? I've been trained. I trained my kids. I trained all the kids that I coached in little leagues. And the kids who I coach, white kids, I didn't have to tell them these things about police officers because they're not treated that way. Now, I would love to see the reaction, God forbid, if it was Aaron Rodgers. Man, if this was Aaron Rodgers, then I believe something might happen. But no, this is just Sterling Brown, just another black guy. Nothing's going to happen. And save it how much people really, really care. Because I know what people care about. They invest their time and their resources. It's no different than our kids at school. We say that we care, and we keep watching them die every day. We say we care about police brutality, and it happens every day. And what do? We do nothing, because most of the cases, you can't even prosecute the officers. So in this case, let's see what happens in Milwaukee. Let's see if these offers are prosecuted at the full extent of the law. I just challenge white people today. I want you to go to a drugstore. I want you to double park your car. I want you to go in and buy something. And I just wonder, what is the probability of you ending up on your face and end up getting tased? Not real high. But obviously, if I decide to do something like that today, the probability is a lot higher.
Listen, your point on what if it were Aaron Rodgers, it's implausible, if not impossible, that this happens to Aaron Rodgers. Because, listen, we just know there's two sets of laws. There's laws that I get to live by, and there's laws you get to live by. You and I were talking before the show. I at times, sometimes at inopportune times, can have a bit of a smart mouth. And we were talking about if you and I were riding together, and if we get pulled over by the cops, what you would say to me about how I would normally conduct myself, as opposed to how I'm going to conduct myself with you next to me, and not because you're Chris Carter, just because you're a black man in America. But anyone thinks that, I'm glad we're playing the video. Maybe there'll be a few people that it shocks them into a realization. But we can just leave it to athletes for a moment. Professor Lou Moore did a great chronology via newspaper articles of this. 1939, Jackie Robinson, traffic violation, gun pulled on him. Jackie Robinson. 1974, your friend Lynn Swann, a red light violation, gets beat by the police. Mid-1970s, Bill Russell in Los Angeles, traffic violation, gun pulled on him. How about just a few years ago in New York City, Thabo Sefolosha standing outside of a club with an altercation he's not involved in. He gets a nightstick to the shin bone and gets it shattered. People don't care. And I will go one step further with it, because this is what is so disheartening. It's worse than people not caring. Since these videos, you mentioned the Rodney King video, but there has been a proliferation of these videos in the last 5 to 6 years thanks to these, right? Thanks to camera phones and cell phones. According to every reputable polling source, white Americans' approval of the police has gone up in this time frame, not down. So the question that is asked is, are the police in these instances acting unlawfully? That's one question. Another question is, are they doing what the communities are actually asking them to do? Are people actually okay with, for black Americans, misdemeanor, if that's not even a crime, double parking, it's a ticket, it's a violation, being punishable by beating, by shooting at times? Because I know what people's response will be. Well, don't double park your car. We theoretically have a system of laws in place in this country where if you commit a crime, you go to trial. You can none of those are summarily executed in the street or tased and beat by a half dozen cops because you committed a parking violation. And I just want to add one other thing, because you mentioned the police aren't going to be punished or haven't been punished. They haven't been fired. They haven't forget being prosecuted. They're all still officers. I hear a lot of people very often say, hey, we all know we have a few bad officers. Few bad apples is how it's put. But let's not lump them all into it. And I can buy into that. But I would request, I would implore, I would beg all the good officers out there, you're allowed to say something. You're allowed to report the bad apples, if you will, because I would argue they make your job more dangerous. The more people are afraid of the police, the more people are on edge around the police, the more at risk The good and the bad, but the good officers are. And so I don't know what it's like to walk in your shoes, see? I have an idea of what it's like to be afraid for my son, but I don't know what it's like to walk in your shoes. But was I surprised? How could you be surprised? It's America in 2018. I don't know how you could be surprised by that happening to anybody, whether he's an NBA player or not.
What I don't want to say what surprised me, but what was very interesting is that he immediately, or shortly thereafter, or as this has sort of unfolded, decided to use this as a teachable moment, if he could. He said, "This experience with the police department has forced me to stand up, tell my story so I can help prevent these injustices from happening in the future," which sounds great, and it's wonderful to believe that way and think that way, but we keep hearing these stories happen over and over again. Does he have a responsibility as an athlete, Kris, to somehow share his story over and over? Is there anything that will change by him doing that?
Nothing's going to change, Jenna. Like, they can stop fooling themselves, all right? Why, as an athlete, should I have more responsibility than other citizens?
Just because people are listening. This story is going to be shared more because he is an athlete.
Is Sterling Brown, is he more important? Is his life more important than anyone else that's died or been? No.
Of course not.
No, so no, I'm not going to put the responsibility on athletes. You know the reason why? Because athletes aren't in control. They don't control the laws, all right? They don't see what's put on the bill for people to vote on. No, the pressure is not on athletes. The pressure is on the same people that's been on for 50 years. It's on white people, all right? All right? Stop locking black people up. Stop harassing. Stop profiling. You know, because after today, Sterling's going to say his piece, but you know something? I got 7 brothers and sisters. I got a mother. No matter where they go, they're going to be damn terrified. You know the reason why? Because of white officers and them harassing them. And to think that some basketball player is going to stand up and it's going to change their life of my nieces and my nephews? No. You know my niece today, Pierre? She's going to go somewhere and her husband, they're going to be terrified if they get stopped. My nephew, my great-nephew, Tyler, you know what's going to happen to him? Sterling Brown, he's got a platform. My nephew, Tyler, don't have no platform. So, no, let's stop moving the burden on professional athletes. No, it's not their burden. It's up for white people to be able to change something.
The people in power obviously have the responsibility to make a change if they want to. And the last thing I'll say is this. For as long as there have been police in this country and black people in this country, black people have said the police treat us differently. And for an incredibly long period of time, white people, either publicly, politicians, newspaper editors, or just your neighbor, said, "We don't believe you. We don't believe you. Prove it." And then everyone got these phones, and it started being indisputable. It started to be provable. And what was, in general terms, the white people in power's reaction to it? To double down. Well, act better, comply, don't break the law, don't have a broken taillight, don't double park. Instead of saying, "Oh my God, we are so sorry. We didn't know what it was like. We're sorry we didn't believe you." And so if countless videos aren't going to change people's opinion, with respect, whether that was Sterling Brown, Giannis, or Kris Middelton, his teammate, who's going to join us shortly, or if it was Chris Carter walking out of the building today, nothing's going to change people's opinion on this unless they want it to be changed.
I'm going to tell you what's going to change. We're going to move on from this topic. We're going to change to something else. And I'm going to go about my life and my family's life, and it's going to be exactly the same damn way. That's what's going to happen.
All right, we're going to break there. We have much more First Things First after the break. Stay with us. The Cavaliers fell to the Boston Celtics last night, 96-83. They're now down 3-2 in the series, with LeBron and Kevin Love being the only starters to score field goals in the first half. The Cavs supporting cast was, well, let's call it below subpar. Nick, what happened to the rest of the Cavaliers not named LeBron and Kevin?
I don't know. I don't know how George Hill doesn't attempt a three-pointer. I don't know how J.R. Smith effectively lights himself on fire midway through the first quarter, and Ty Lue doesn't put Kyle Korver in the game. I don't know how Jordan Clarkson, once again, gets 10 shots up in 15 minutes. as bipolar, I shouldn't use that term, as hot and cold as the Celtics have been home and road, the Cavs role players have been similar game to game, not necessarily determined on where the game is being played.
Not just the postseason, since the trade.
Throughout the regular season, absolutely.
Yeah, that's why we shouldn't be surprised. That's the reason why I said Cleveland's not a great team. They got the best player, but it's not a great team. And the reason, because those other people, the inconsistency, when you talk about a critical game number 5 in Boston, and they're starting backcourt and George Hill and JR. I mean, JR had more fouls, well, I think he had 4, than he had points, assists, rebounds, and steals. He had 5 fouls. He had 5 fouls, yeah, because he almost broke his leg on the 1 foul. Yeah, he had 5 fouls, but less points, rebounds. He made 1 field goal. I mean, 1 field goal as a starter in the NBA when you're playing 30 minutes, like, that's just, it's uncalled for. And with Rodney Hood being down and them really having no answer, like, man, this is what I hate to say I expected to see. And this is the reason why I didn't predict that the Cavs and LeBron would make it to their 8th straight final.
I mean, this has been the reason why going into the Toronto series, you thought Toronto could win that series. You thought that if they got Philly, you thought Philly would be
any
terrible.
of those teams I would have picked over the Cavs.
Over the Cavs. And my guess is, we haven't talked about it yet, my guess is right now you feel like Boston's going to win this series.
Right. I told you yesterday, at the end of the first quarter, I would tell you the team in control of the series. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like, yeah, I know you go back to Cleveland for 1 game. I know Game 7 for LeBron. But this team in the Celtics plays so much better at home. And knowing that they're going to have at least another 3 and plus another 7 quarters there, yes, that's why I have the Celtics.
Here's why this is so concerning, and I'll leave it at this. Because of what happened in Game 2 in Boston. Because I believe the Cavs are going to win when they go back home. Boston's been terrible on the road. The Cavs have been good at home. They lost first home playoff game of this season, and that's it. But we saw in Game 2, LeBron go to Boston, put up a 42-point triple-double, and lose. Why? Because all of his other teammates were terrible. Like, I think we can rely on LeBron in the Game 7 that I think is going to happen, being great. Someone else has to be at least okay.
Good. Even okay.
Oh, and, I mean, they haven't had a single Cav not named LeBron score 15 points in the last 3 games.
Look, this is also the team that on the off chance they get by Boston, you said that the one team they probably would want to match up with is Houston. There's no way that team that you saw last night can hang with the
Absolutely
Houston
not.
Rockets.
They better not be thinking ahead of the next 5 minutes.
All right, speaking of what's going on out west, we wanted a series there, and while it wasn't always pretty, it was a little lopsided at times, a little messy. It's exactly what we got. Rockets and Warriors all tied up at 2 games apiece after Houston stole a road win on Tuesday. That series now shifts back to Houston tonight for Game 5, where the Warriors have listed both Andre Iguodala and Klay Thompson as questionable with injuries. Here's Draymond Green on the Warriors' mindset heading into the game.
Kind of pissed off. You know we let one slip away. So definitely guys are pissed off, but encouraged as well. I love the way this team respond when our back is against the wall. I don't mind our backs being against the wall because I know, what we're capable of, and I know the level of focus and intensity level that this team's bring when that is the case. So, it is what it is. I think we blew a golden opportunity, but it's not one that we can't get back. We know we can go get it back, so it's no panic.
If I may, I just have a question. How does Draymond know how this team responds when their back's up against the wall? Since they got Kevin Durant,
they've never had their backs up.
They've never had their backs up against the wall.
The closest they've come was Draymond right there with his back up against a wall for that interview.
They've never trailed in a series. This is the first series they've even ever been tied in. They've never faced anything more than a sweep or a 5-game series. How does he know how they respond?
I think that Draymond and some of the nucleus players, they've been through enough stuff internally. Even like when they were bored during the season, there's certain little struggles, little challenges that you have as a team. So I could see why Draymond would be, yes, everything that we have faced. Now, if you haven't faced what people call real adversity compared to everything they have been, it's adversity to them. So you can create a world in your mind and transfer that to the other players. So yes, they have faced adversity in their own mind. If it's not from a PR standpoint, it's other things. The world hates the Warriors.
Sure.
Okay, so I believe that this is not something made up. This is real. Kevin Durant, he's faced adversity. Draymond's faced adversity, and they faced it this year, not playing up to the level of their expectations.
What do you expect to see tonight in this game, Nick?
Man, the one game the Rockets haven't had yet this series, and I would imagine if they're going to have it, it would be at home and not in a Game 7, so it would be tonight, is the three-point avalanche. Like, when you're trying to figure out how can the Rockets win 4 of 7 against Golden State, one of the games you bake into it is, oh, they have a 21 of 44 night from 3, and nobody in the NBA loses that game. Doesn't matter who you are. You hit more than 19 threes in a game unless your opponent does the same. You win that game literally like 98% of the time. So I think that is what I'm obviously the Rockets' game plan isn't going to be, we're just not going to miss any threes, but we haven't seen that yet from what is the most prolific three-point shooting team in the history of the league. That's what I think we're going to see tonight.
In my sports history, and the higher the stakes, the less my expectations on expertise, because the pressure and the level of energy and defense that teams play, that being in football or being in basketball. I never expect an exceptional performance late in the year and in championship. The reason why? There's too much pressure. The reason why? The defense and the attention to detail, especially when you get into a series, it's hard to get all those open looks when this is Game 5. They've seen you 4 times in the last week and a half. So I never have those high expectations for guys in a championship level. I expect this to be a struggle. And I told Nick this before. Basketball, now Draymond said something. Basketball is not a game you can play mad. Now, Draymond can because he doesn't have to shoot the ball. To rebound, to screen, to do all the grunt work,
defense, yeah.
You can play mad. You can be pissed. But Kevin Durant pissed? It's not in him. Clay injured? It's not in him. Steph? I mean, even if he is pissed or mad, what's he going to do? Like, they're not that type of physical team. So I'm going to watch Draymond. I'm just going to watch the emotion and see how he tries to channel that to these other guys who aren't mad or guys who play with that type of chip.
Yeah. And, Jenna, if one of those two guys you listed as questionable misses the game, in Iggy or Clay, and once again, with just one day off between games, all these guys got to play 40-plus minutes after traveling from the Bay to Houston. That's something Golden State has not had to deal with. That's something this iteration of Golden State has no experience with. 2 games in 3 days where your starters are all playing 40-plus minutes. They're not used to that.
Yeah, it was a small thing, but in watching the video that you had broke down as far as Kevin Durant and that last sequence of plays, another thing that's a real thing I want to watch tonight's game, if these guys are injured, whoever's on the court, we do realize that whoever's on the court has not played significant minutes with the stars, with Kevin Durant, with Steph. And you could see Sean Livingston. In the last play, Sean Livingston goes right down the middle and is in the middle of the lane. Now, if Andre Iguodala's on the court, he goes to the right corner. So watch these other players,
right,
and watch as we get into critical situations. Do they know what to do because they haven't been in them a lot?
But Klay Thompson does know what to do, was in, and we saw him limping around in that last game. So let's see how much he can actually contribute.
Absolutely.
Again,
right.
Both Iggy and Klay Thompson listed as questionable for Game 5. All right, coming up, Mark Schlereth is here. That's all we have to say. That's it. That's the tease. That's why you should come back next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, we are joined now by Fox NFL analyst Mark Schlereth.
What up, Stink? Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. Good
How's
to
it
be
going?
on the program. It's great. It's
Good.
great. Things are good.
Good. That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
NFL, that's what I wanted to know, that you're great.
All right, I'm out.
Good. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah.
NFL owners unanimously approved a national anthem policy yesterday. The policy requires players to stand if they're on the field with the option to stay in the locker room during the anthem. Teams will be fined if their players or personnel do not follow the new protocol. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said, quote, "We want people to be respectful of the national anthem." Mark Schlereth, I'll start with you. What do you make of this new anthem policy?
Well, I mean, again, the narrative on this whole scenario was never about disrespecting the national anthem or the flag. And I listened to your eloquent conversation about Sterling Brown. And I told you in the hallway, I have never one time in my life thought about telling my kids what to do in case they were pulled over, because there is a difference in the way white people and black people are treated by the police. So it's never even crossed my mind to have that conversation with my kids, and that breaks my heart that my African-American friends have had to have, every one of them I know have had to have that conversation. And that's sad. And so this has never been about disrespecting our national anthem. As a matter of fact, it was a sit-down by Colin Kaepernick originally, and Nate Boyer, Green Beret Nate Boyer, is the one who
cajoled him into
right,
kneeling.
to say, hey, kneel, because it's not disrespectful.
We would see it more of a sign of respect.
Right. And so, but again, the narrative, right? What was the tee-up question that you just asked me? What was the narrative is that it's disrespectful to our country or to our anthem, and that has never been the intent from Colin Kaepernick or any of the other players. It's really to draw awareness to what we just saw with Sterling Brown, who on a traffic violation got tased by the Milwaukee police. That's what this whole thing has been about from the start. And I understand being a business owner. You understand being a business owner. If things on the surface, even perception becomes reality. So if the perception by the American people and by our president and everybody else saying this is disrespectful, everybody buys into that, well, then that hurts your business. And I understand from an owner standpoint, they're concerned about their business, as well they should be. But again, the narrative has become disrespect, and it really has never been about that from the player standpoint.
It's been even the way most shows or whatever, news or sports, put it on the screen. Anthem protests is how it's been. That's not what they're protesting.
Right.
If someone does a march, that is not a traffic protest. Like that, they're just marching through the streets. This is so frustrating, because I do understand that because the discussion has been hijacked, because the discussion became this is disrespect of the troops, even though you have countless troops, active service members saying, I kneel in solidarity with the NFL players, that it's been disrespectful of the anthem, even though you have every player, every single player that has taken a knee or was sitting or raising a fist has gone out of their way to say, we are not disrespecting. We are not disrespecting the country. We are striving for a better country. But you're right that it has been hijacked to a degree to where that is how people view it. So I also understand why the owners would say, listen, we're not in the protest business. We're in the football business, and we think this is hurting our bottom line. What is so incredibly frustrating to me is I truly believe in my heart that the people angriest about this, the loudest people, whether it's politicians or football fans or just television viewers, they are not angry about how the players are protesting. They are angry about what is being protested. I think because if this were the exact same thing, sitting and then kneeling, and Colin Kaepernick and the other players were asked, why are you doing this? And the answer was, I'll be honest with you, I think our troops who return home from war defend that flag more than anyone. I think they are mistreated. I think the VA system's a mess. I don't think we take care of them. And I won't stand for the flag until we stand for them. The people angriest about the disrespect of the flag would be standing and applauding. The problem is not the method of protest. The problem has always been what they're protesting. And there's always been resistance in this country from the predominantly white power structure to any form of black protest advocating for equal rights. And the anger gets even greater when it's theoretically black folks who have made it, prominent black people, when the answer's always been, what do you got to be mad about? You're rich, you're famous, you could be a pro football player. Ignoring the fact that there's irony's not lost on me. Sterling Brown might not be rich yet, but NBA player, none of it matters. None of it changes in those moments for what they're protesting. And so I understand why the NFL did what they did. It breaks my heart that in this country this couldn't have been a unifying thing. It breaks my heart that people couldn't say we all should strive for a more just place, a more just police force, a more just treatment of all of our citizens. But we're not there. We're not even close to being there.
No, we're not there. I'm not surprised. I know the ownership of the National Football League. This is what I expected them to do. And I expected them to try to do it also without it being collectively bargained. You know, I can understand them with being the owners of the business. They could do what's best for the business. But You're in business with the players. It's a partnership. Everything's been collectively bargained. And to think that you could change the rules without them having some type of say, I'm not surprised at all. But at this point, last year, the owners did something monumental. They made a contribution, almost $100 million to the Players Coalition, to all the causes, to all these players, Malcolm Jenkins, Doug Baldwin, all the great things these guys are doing. Now, it's just going to be just an afterthought. Like, we'll never talk about that contribution they made because it should have been followed up with something. Their $90 million should have been followed up with a policy that took the players' voice in mind, that they did care. So for me, just like the Sterling Brown, this is just evidence. I know that they don't care. I know they don't care. And yesterday what they did was even more evidence of that.
What about the policy itself? Is there anything to the fact that players are allowed to stay in the locker room, or if they want to protest, can stay in the locker room, that now this turns maybe a little bit more turmoil rather than unity because you're going to have different fractions on teams who are in and are out? I mean, does it actually solve the issue that the NFL intended to when it was first laid out?
Well, the issue certainly won't be solved. I mean, they're just trying. I mean, the $90 million looks more like hush money than it looks like a partnership now.
Yes.
Right? Just keep your mouth shut. Here's $90 million, and let's make sure that we don't mess with our business. I don't believe that. I mean, if a bunch of guys are out of the locker room, we'll have counters. We'll have somebody going, okay, so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so was not out there, and so I don't think it alleviates the issue. It puts.
So what does it do?
It closes a drape on a messy bedroom. It closes people come over to your house and your kid's bedroom's a mess and you ask them to clean it up and they didn't. What do? Do you leave the doors open or do you shut them? You shut them and say, oh, that room's off limits right now. And that's really what it does. It's closing the drapes so you can't see our dirty laundry.
And this issue will continue to be exploited for profit and for divisive purposes from people who think they can benefit from it. There will be people counting who is out of the locker room, who is not, because for good or for bad, the most powerful person in this country, the President of the United States, he said this morning, right after the show started, that if you're not standing for the anthem, not only should you not be able to play in the NFL, maybe you shouldn't be allowed to live in the country. Mm-hmm. The belief is that this is a winning issue, and that pointing out the ungrateful black athlete is a winning political issue. So if there's guys in the locker room, we'll know who they are. They'll be pointed out, and this doesn't solve anything. It might be the drape, but it's a drape with a hole in it, like that people can still see in there.
If the NFL, if they cared, you know what they do? Because right now the owners, they want to make everyone think they're more patriotic than the players, and that's a bunch of bull. You know what the owners are doing? You know what the Park Avenue NFL office is doing? They're taking money from the military. That's why they got the people standing up. They in partnership with the military. The military is paying them to have those flags, to have the soldiers on every field. Why don't we talk about that more? The NFL is benefiting from this. And based on what you said, if I got a call from Washington, D.C. right now, and they were congratulating me on something, I would consider that to be fool's gold.
All right, we'll leave it there. Mark, stick around. We're back with more First Things First right after this. Le'Veon Bell with a no-show at Steelers OTAs yesterday. He remains unsigned after receiving a second consecutive franchise tag. According to teammate Antonio Brown, that's a bad idea. Brown said, quote, "You can't make anything better without showing up. That is my mantra every day on this show." Stink, how big of a deal is it for a player to basically shame another player about missing OTAs?
Oh, a guy that has his money going to shame somebody that doesn't have his. Like that's inappropriate. Like, you can't do that. That's one of those things. That's one of those locker room violations that you should never do. And all we have to do is look to Los Angeles and the Chargers with Hunter Henry. That's why you don't show up. Because what are the odds of you getting paid if you tear your ACL in some voluntary workout? Mm-hmm. Playing some football, doing some football drills, tear your ACL, then what are the odds of you getting a long-term contract, especially at that position, the running back position? I mean, he's already been around. He's already had the wear and tear. Like, yes. That's ridiculous. And Antonio Brown ought to keep his mouth shut when it comes to other people's money. You got yours.
I feel like this is a code that you keep to even post-career, to a degree, as far as chastising guys for getting money. I talk about NFL salaries a lot because it's a hard-capped league. And I think it matters. Like, money spent here is money that therefore can't be spent there. And this is something that about my commentary has always rubbed you the wrong way. Like, it does seem to me like there's a rule amongst players. Like, we want everyone to be as rich as possible for as long as possible, and don't count my money. Like, that's the message I've gotten from you, which is why I was shocked that Antonio Brown, who's the highest paid receiver in the history of football, is going to go after any of his teammates who has yet to get a long-term contract.
Yeah, I mean, this is a cardinal sin. You don't talk about other people's money. And it just speaks to Pittsburgh. There's a lot of things. Well, why haven't they won a championship? Well, you know something? Talking about another star player's money when you have long-term security, doing that in the offseason where we could have been talking about 100 other things today in the Pittsburgh Steelers, but some type of way, they always manage to get themselves, like, once a month. Ben Roethlisberger, I ain't helping out the rookies. They think they know everything, don't need my help. And then we got another star player talking about another star player. So this, to me, as the world turns, this happens to be the Pittsburgh Steelers that are very, very talented.
We saw it all year last year. 27 stories about the Steelers. 26 of them were not even football related.
Not only last year, Jenna, since this collection of players, all right? This is the only time in Pittsburgh Steelers history that you have all these little subplots, all these other agendas coming out of the locker room. And I believe it's a team sport.
Right.
All right? It affects the bottom line.
Here's the deal, and Herm Edwards used to say this to me all the time. He goes, you're either coaching it or allowing it to happen.
I was going to ask about Tom.
So, it comes down, to me, it comes from the top. It comes down to Mike Tomlin. You either have to say, we're not going to do this anymore, or they're going to be real consequences.
What do those look like?
What is a real consequence?
Well, let's get an example. Okay. The Giants' new coach,
Pat
Shurmur. They had a player who commented. It was Landon Collins. He commented on the tackle
Eric Flowers, yeah.
Not being at OTAs. He said he's not here because he's mad because we signed Eric. The coach said the next day in the press conference, I told Landon, don't talk about another player. Don't let either the player's not here, either allow me or the organization to talk about it. It's not your job to comment about players and why or why not they're here.
But isn't that Mike Tomlin's thing? Mike Tomlin's like, yeah, let's own it. Let's embrace the fact that this is a sort of a dysfunctional family, if you will. It sort of worked for us the last couple of years. Look how deep we go. We're consistently good. So let them have their whatever they want to do, and when we get out on the field, we're going to go play football. Hasn't that sort of been the way Mike Tomlin has coached this team?
There's no question. And you can talk about one of the most talented teams in the league for sure, but one of the most talented teams we've ever seen here in the last decade that doesn't have a ring. To show for it in the last 5 or 6 or 7. I don't remember when exactly the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers won a world championship, but it's been a while, and they haven't done it with this collection.
Before they had L. Bell, before they had Antonio Brown.
Right.
I mean, it was Big Ben was there, and Mike Tomlin was there, but that's basically it as far as the key components go. And there's earlier we were talking about LeBron, and you were like, everyone says he played terribly. He did have 26, 10, and 5. Well, that was below what the expectations were for him. There are 28 teams in the league that would love to have the Pittsburgh Steelers' success over the last 5 years. The problem is there's 30 or 31 teams in the league that have less talent than Pittsburgh. Like, when you talk about overall offensive firepower, I think it's the best. It could be the best offense in the league. It's the only team in the league that has a consensus top 5 quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. It also has an entrenched head coach, has an excellent home field advantage, has a division where you get 2 free wins every year against the Browns. Like, there are a lot of edges you have in Pittsburgh, and they haven't fully explored. I thought they would last year. I thought they could win the Super Bowl last year.
Right. Let me give you one of the most regal people I've ever been around in my entire life is Joe Gibbs, my first head coach. And Joe Gibbs used to say this all the time, and it holds true. And it holds true through I was blessed to be on 3 championship teams. He used to say that talent will make plays in the first 3 quarters, and great character will win games in the 4th quarter. And the problem that you get into when you have a collection of talent that cares more about itself than it cares about the collective of the team is that when the going gets tough, you're worried about you as opposed to us. And when you're not worried about us, guess what you don't do? You don't win championships. And that's the bottom line. And that, to me, is the Pittsburgh Steelers' problem. They have a championship organization at the top. They have a championship level of talent throughout their team, but they don't have a championship attitude that permeates that team, and that starts from the coach.
Mark, you have a championship attitude. We love it.
Absolutely.
Makes us happy. You got the hardware to prove it. Thank you so much, as always.
Always
Love
good to
having
be
you
with
here.
you guys.
Coming up, look who's here. Milwaukee Bucks star Kris Middelton.
All right. Welcome to the show, bro.
Thanks for having me.
Back here in First Things First, and in an effort to be a show that has a lot of tall guests, we decided to invite Milwaukee Bucks star Kris Middelton onto our show. Thank you for hanging out with us today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
One of if people aren't watching a lot of NBA League Pass because the Bucks aren't on national TV a ton, one of the league's most underrated, all-around excellent players.
Appreciate it.
He's baseball called five-tool guy, can do everything. It's really great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
All right, we got a lot to get to today, but we do want to start with some tough news regarding something that happened to your teammate earlier this year. Milwaukee police released footage yesterday of an officer using a stun gun on rookie Sterling Brown. Now, Brown says he plans to file a lawsuit against the Milwaukee PD. Kris, let's bring it out to you here. How's Sterling doing with all of this? How much did he talk about with you and the team?
I saw Sterling a couple of days before I left Milwaukee, and he's doing great right now. He's in a great place of mind. He has a great peace of mind right now. During the time after it happened, you could tell it was bothering him a little bit. During that time, he asked for his privacy, which we all respect. He just wanted to think it over with his family and try to get some advice from his legal teams or whatever. So we kept it private, left him alone about it. But I'm glad he's doing better now. I'm glad he's going forward with a civil lawsuit and speaking on this matter.
Now, for me, it's a little bit different. As a professional athlete, I'm part of a different community. You live there in that community. Yes. So it has to hit you. Not only is that one of your teammates, but this is where you live. This is where you pay taxes and everything. So how did it affect you and the other players on that team? Because it had to affect you.
No, we felt like we were the guys in that video. I mean, this is not the first time something like that has happened in Milwaukee. So guys are not too happy about it. I know our organization is fully behind Sterling, which is great. So to have something like that happen to one of your brothers you see every day, you go into court with and fight, to see that he did nothing wrong except for park his car sideways in the wrong spot. There's no use for that type of abuse or intimidation by the police.
And if people don't know, because the Milwaukee Bucks organization came out with a very strong statement.
Oh, man, it was awesome.
It was
support they gave.
The amazing support, and it's in an interesting juxtaposition with what's going on with the NFL and those owners right now. But there's some history here. I think it was John Henson had a racial profiling incident in Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. The president of the Milwaukee Bucks, who is a white man, he said a few months ago, this is the most racist city I've ever been in. And he caught a lot of flack for that. And in this statement, I am curious how it is being, I mean, you're 6'8", you're black, you're in Milwaukee. How is living in that city, given what's happened to your teammates and given, evidently, I haven't spent a lot of time there, the climate of the city as a whole?
Yeah, it's tough. Knowing how tall we are and the color of our skin, we're kind of a target. I mean, we're easy to see, we're easy to point out. If people don't see our face, they take us as a threat at first because they don't recognize us as basketball players, which is wrong. So just the people that live in that city to see that they probably have to go to that all the time is very unfortunate.
All right, Kris, let's switch gears and talk about the game, what we're all enjoying right now. Last night's NBA playoff action. The Boston Celtics improved to 10-0 at home this postseason with a 96-83 win over the Cavs. Kris, in case you don't know, Nick and I have been wagering, going back and forth a little bit. It's a little bit of a Cavs fan. I'm a little bit of a Celtics fan, so it's good. You saw firsthand when your Bucks took the Celtics to 7 games with the home team winning 1. Last night, the home team were the Boston Celtics. They ended up winning. What do you think makes the Celtics so difficult to beat at TD Garden? Why are they so hard to beat there? Is it just the crowd or is it something else?
They're comfortable at home. They feed off that crowd. That crowd is tough. They're rowdy. They get after our fans that are there and then us on the court. So it's a very tough place to play. Those young guys, they feed off that crowd. They feed off that energy, which is tough to do in Boston.
Go ahead, C.
Go ahead.
Apologies. The series you guys played, it was jarring to me, the discrepancy between the home road. And I thought for the Celtics, that would, whoever advanced, but for the Celtics ended up advancing, that would then change in the next rounds. It hasn't. You played 41 road games during the regular season and then the 3 in Boston. Or the 4 in Boston. What is different? Is it a better home court advantage than other places? Or is it just their guys are better for some reason at home than they are on the road?
I think their guys are better at home so far. I mean, that's what the numbers have proven so far throughout the playoffs. But that's why everybody fights for home court standings in the playoffs. They know how big that home court could be. To get Game 7 on your home court and have a crowd behind you instead of going against them makes things much easier for them.
Yeah, one of the X factors for the Celtics has been their coach. Very seldom do we see as much attention on the coach as we've seen with Brad there in Boston with their 2 superstars being out of the lineup. Give me some things that you have witnessed in going to battle against the Celtics, the adjustments that he made that you said, wow, okay, now this coach is on a different level.
Yeah, each game he made adjustments, game by game, and sometimes in-game adjustments, which is frustrating to see sometimes how they change rotations, change if they're going to trap the ISOs or force you to play one-on-one. Brady does a great job of pinning his guys in positions to score. I mean, they're a deep team, and each guy on the court, even their 5-man, Aaron Baines, is out there shooting up and down jump shots. So he does a great job of pinning different bodies on different guys for matchups and just trying to take certain things away for the team's success.
Chris, is this where you thought the series would be right now with the Cavs trailing 3-2? I don't know what you thought going in, but is it playing out the way you thought it might?
A little bit. I mean, last night was a huge game for them. They pulled it out. We were in the same situation during our series, and we thought we could get a win on the road for Game 5. In Boston. Couldn't get it done. You see LeBron trying to do it by himself. It's going to be hard. He's going to need all those guys around him to help out and hit some shots.
Yeah, I'm not going to call you a role player. Nick and I watch you all the time. But anytime you play with a superstar, a lot of times that's what the conversation is. You play with Giannis. It's just like kind of playing with LeBron. It's all the other players. You've thrived with that, though. How much pressure is on the Cavs and the role players when you're playing with a superstar?
Yeah, I mean, they're probably feeling it a little bit right now. I mean, LeBron, he's going to score, but for them to win, he's got to get his assists. He's got to get in the paint and kick out and get the other guys involved. What he's trying to do, he's not going to be able to do it by himself against that team.
Here's what I know. If the Cavs get the contribution in Game 7, because I believe they're going to win Game 6 at home, if they get a contribution from their non-superstar, the way the Bucks did from Kris Middelton in Game 7, they'll win that basketball game. Chris, you had 32 points in Game 7. In that series, I think you shot...
I told him before we got on the segment, if he was on the Cavs, they'd be in the finals.
Oh, no question about it. Like, he's giving them more production than their second and third best players combined. Yes. Like, in the playoffs, you were really good in the regular season. I thought you had an argument to be an all-star, but you didn't make. You were really good in the regular season. In the playoffs, you shot 60% from the field, averaged 25 points a game, and I think 61% from 3, which sounds make-believe. Yeah. Usually that means you were 3 out of 5, but no, you were shooting a bunch of threes. That was against the best defense in the NBA. Why do you think you succeeded so much against a defense that has strangled almost everyone on the Cavs but LeBron?
For some reason, I was able to get into a rhythm. I was able to get to my spots. You know, they threw a lot of different guys at me to length, size, speed. Even when Marcus Smart came back, just his toughness. But I was able to get to my spots and shoot over guys, use my length. And my teammates did a great job of setting me up for the most part.
All right, so I got a follow-up question on that. Because the analytics community of which I'm a part of says there is no such thing as being in the zone. There's no such thing as a hot streak, that's all make-believe.
There's a lot of nerds now.
I watched you. I watched KD the first 2 games of the Rockets-Warriors series. Visually, I feel like there's absolutely such thing as being in the zone. There's absolutely such thing as catching fire. Did you feel that? Do you think that is a real thing? And as a player, does the basket appear to get bigger?
Definitely so. I mean, you see 2 or 3 in a row go in, you think anything you throw up is going to go. It's going to drop for you, and that's the way I felt during that series. I had a lot of great looks that they went in. I had a lot of looks that I didn't think they were going to go in, and they ended up going in for me also.
The reason why that you've ascended to being a star player is because your work ethic. People don't know you or watch your game. Just reading about how you've worked to get to this point. You have Giannis and yourself. What are some of the things you're working on this offseason to get ready to take the Bucks and the new coach there to that next level?
Right now, I've been in the weight room for the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's just
you already? I mean, the season's not even over with, bro.
Yeah, just getting
That's
ready.
awesome.
Getting ready though for the next year. I want to have even a better year. I want to get further. I want to be still playing at this time. So I want to work on my body, get as strong as I can, get healthy. So just got to take it step by step. I haven't really thought about necessarily what I want to add to my game for the next season, but that'll come in the next couple of weeks.
Kris, one of the more fun people that we've enjoyed following this season has been Giannis, watching him sort of develop, not just on social media, where he's had a lot of fun and it's been entertaining for us, but on the court as well. Just give me, what's he like as a teammate, as a friend, as a player? I mean, if there's a guy that looks like he's having fun when he's playing basketball, it's Giannis.
It's definitely Giannis. I mean, he just wants to have fun out there. He wants to win. He wants to compete. To have a guy like that on the side of you is great. He's an incredible talent. He's a great guy, a great teammate. And, I'm glad I have him by my side.
Do you, real quick before you go, do you have a great, Giannis Welcome to America story? We've heard about the first time he had smoothies. I read a story about him taking food home from the team cafeteria because he couldn't believe there was so. Is there a great, maybe people don't know it, Giannis early days story?
How he was addicted to watching Coming to America. I mean, he couldn't speak English that well, so he had to watch movies like a lot of people do, and Coming to America was one of his favorites, that he would come through quoting, trying to sound like Eddie Murphy and whatnot.
That's amazing. That's great.
That's awesome. All right, Kris, thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Success.
Thank you for coming by.
All the best to you.
Thanks.
Stick with the weight room stuff. Big fan. Big fan. That was my takeaway. Love having you here. Enjoy your off season.
Thanks.
We're back with much more First Things First right after this. Back here in First Things First, look who's here. FS1 NBA analyst Kris Broussard.
Another Kris.
Another Kris.
There's always Chris's on this show.
We have a
in
lot
addition to you.
Yeah, all kinds of
Middelton, me.
all kinds of bad spellings.
And-
I was going to say we have three different. We have
That's
three
right.
Chris's
Three
with
different-
All
three different
spelled differently.
spellings. Absolutely.
Mine is the right way. Y'all just
Yeah, my mom
went
is
left.
still trying to spell it that way.
Well, and Kris Middelton, the KH for Kris Middelton is a very. He might be the only one in the country with that.
I wish him and I could have been in the same class. I would have had a few little jokes for him going.
All right, time for some stories to start your morning. The Clippers and head coach Doc Rivers have agreed to a contract extension. Rivers is coming off his 5th season with Los Angeles on a team that went 42-40 and just missed the playoffs. Nick, good idea to give Doc an extension?
Listen, if you offer it to him, he's going to take it. Doc Rivers not in the turning down money business. I think Doc Rivers, now that he doesn't have all the other responsibilities, is a better coach. And I thought he did a good job once they traded Blake Griffin. I thought they made the most of that team.
He did a great job last year. My problem is I thought he did a poor job when they actually had talent, championship level talent. I mean, I really do. Look, he was great this year. They say in the NBA you can't coach on a lame duck contract last year. I know they say that. I don't know why. You can't. He's going to get $11 million. The feeling was that he would be upset or maybe leave if they didn't give him an extension. This is just to not put him in a lame duck situation.
Two things. Number one, in the NBA, there is no luxury of great coaches. If you got a good coach, you better not fire him, because the ability to get another coach is highly questionable. And number two, right now doing cartwheels and did the splits, his son. Oh, I got an extension. Yes.
Family money.
Dad
the
took care of
splits.
him for sure.
Recently, there was some speculation that Karl Anthony Towns could be on the trading block this summer, but according to a report, the Timberwolves would rather fire Coach Tom Thibodeau than deal Towns. CeCe, what do you make of the tension in Minnesota?
I believe the tension is real, but I don't like the look for Karl Anthony Towns. I like him as a person. He's embraced Minnesota. Minnesota loves him. I never like when a player is put in the conversation of you either have to make a choice between that player and the coach. It always comes back to haunt the player. It always makes the player look bad. So that's just not a look or a conversation I want surrounding the big cat.
Well, it's telling that he hasn't come out. This has been out for a few days now. He hasn't come out and said, look, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Everything's good. I get, though, where they're coming. And I love Tom Thibodeau. I thought in Chicago he was a top 3 coach in the league. He hasn't been tremendous in Minnesota, but he's been pretty good. But, yeah, if it comes down to Thibodeau or Karl Anthony Towns, it's a no-brainer. You got to get Thibodeau out of there.
This is the business. Just like Chris Carter, you're our star player. If you came in one day and were like, it's me or Ketta who's our coach, I love Keta. I think Keta does a great job. Keta gots to go.
Sorry, Keta.
I mean, those are just the rules. By any means necessary, you
No
keep
problem. I got a few
keep
proposals
the
for you after the show.
You keep the talent.
All right, Rockets.
Bad example, Keta. Bad.
Sorry, Keta. Rockets and Warriors are back at it tonight. Game 5 from Houston with this series tied at 2 games apiece. Rockets snapped the Warriors' 16-game home playoff streak and now hope to carry the momentum into this game. Now, the Warriors have listed both Andre Iguodala and Klay Thompson as questionable with injuries. Warriors not thrilled, but also not worried.
Kind of pissed off. You know we let one slip away. So definitely guys are pissed off, but encouraged as well. I love the way this team respond when our back is against the wall. I don't mind our backs being against the wall because I know, what we're capable of, and I know the level of focus and intensity level that this team's bring when that is the case. So, it is what it is. I think we blew a golden opportunity, but it's not one that we can't get back. We know we can go get it back, so it's no panic.
All right, Kris, what are you expecting to see in Game 5 tonight?
Well, for the sake of suspense, I'm hoping Houston wins. Because imagine if they win and put the champs on the brink. We're going to probably have a 7-game series. It'll be great. But I'm expecting Golden State to come out and take it tonight. And I'm expecting big games from Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. Kevin Durant now has had about 2 days to listen to how he should have taken the shot. And he should have taken the shot. And he probably knows it inside of himself. So I think he's going to come out and really kill them like he usually does from the mid-range. And then I think Steph has the same way, had 2 days to listen to how he faded in the fourth quarter. After that great third quarter, he's shimmying and all. That makes it worse. When you showboat like that, and I like the showboating, but when you do that and then disappear, it makes it worse. So I expect those two to come out with big games.
There's an element to me of, to quote Rocky IV, the Russian is cut as far as how the Warriors lost in Game 4. We've never seen this team lose that way. We've never seen this team under Steve Kerr, with or without Kevin Durant, dominate a team in the third quarter and then blow that lead. We'd only twice this year seen this team have a double-digit lead going into the fourth quarter and lose that game. But Game 1 of the season to Houston Rockets and 2 days ago to the Houston Rockets. This team all of a sudden feels vulnerable. And I would imagine for them, their sense of invincibility has been punctured just a bit. When Steph, you know why Steph thought he could shimmy up the court with a minute left in the third quarter? He thought what everyone else thought. Game's over. Yeah. I can showboat because we have won this basketball game. I mean, it's not officially already got to play the fourth quarter, but we've never blown a lead like this. But then they did. So that plus the Houston crowd, plus, as I mentioned to you yesterday, one of these games, Houston going to hit 17, 18 threes. Like, that's going to happen. For all those reasons and the health factor, I think the Rockets are in the better position tonight than Golden State.
The two questionable players for Golden State, Iggy and Klay, it really affects Golden State's abilities to defend, and especially on the perimeter and on the wings. Who else do they have to defend on the wings? Like, I mean, what type of defense are they going to be able to play? And they're going against the worst team for these guys to be injured. That is a team that not only shoots the three, but has a bunch of depth on the wing. And you lose their athleticism. If you lose the athleticism of Klay and Iggy, I mean, what do you have? Like, you got a bunch of jump shooters in KD and in Steph. So what I expect to happen, I look for for Houston to be able to get the win tonight at home. And I haven't seen, and we saw the fatigue on LeBron, the best conditioned athlete in sports now. Right. We saw last night either a respiratory or his legs, the overall fatigue. If they play in this game with lower leg injuries, like that's the thing I wouldn't want to be injured at this point in the NBA season. Well, anything under my hips, and with Klay having a knee, and with Iggy having the bone contusion, which is right below the knee, like how are you going to be an effective jump shooter? We saw Klay come back into the game. The first shot he took was a complete air ball.
And even
last shot.
And even if you think Klay will be able to, if he gets open, hit shots with the knee injury, so much of Klay's the way he gets open is moving off the ball.
Yes.
Quick cuts, moving off screens. Like that, the knee injury hurts his ability to get open, even if you see him in practice. Oh, he can still hit the jump shot. Like that. And obviously, Iggy's entire
If it was KD,
is
it would be different.
Absolutely.
Because you can still post him up. You can still put him at the three-point line, and he can shoot right over top people compared to the movement that Klay has.
The question is, how bad is the knee? I mean, they seem pretty confident. They said a couple of days ago, oh, he's going to play. They don't seem to think it's serious, but let's see if it hinders him.
How does Houston use that?
Well, I mean, obviously it's just one less weapon that the Warriors have. It's easier to guard him, easier to stay with him so he doesn't get wide open. The thing, and again, I'm kind of assuming Klay will be Klay. If that's the case, I think in this series the Warriors just have a lot more room for error. And that you saw in Game 4, Kevin Durant doesn't play well, especially in the fourth. He's 9 for 24. Steph disappears in the fourth. Klay is hampered and doesn't do anything in the fourth. And they still are up by 12 in the quarter and lost by 3. Houston, on the other hand, gets 30 from Harden and 27 from Chris Paul. Now, granted, Harden didn't play well in the fourth either, but 30 is 30. And so those two, as you've said, they have to be great in the game for them to win. That's not the case with Golden State.
I look at that a little differently. Because over the course of the game, Harden and Paul scored 57, Steph and Klay scored 55. Chris Paul shot 50%. Harden, though, shot, I'm doing the math real quick, 38%. Steph and Durant both shot 38%. Like, those guys kind of, they did it in different times.
Yes.
Harden did it early. Steph did it in the third. CP3 did it in the second half. They did it different times, but they kind of canceled each other out. If I'm Houston, I'm like, man, my third leading scorer, Eric Gordon, was 4 for 14. Clint Capella was a non-factor. P.J. Tucker didn't make a shot. Like, so for all those reasons, I think coming home, Houston actually can look at around. Because what Golden State can't do is say, Nick Young, he's going to be the guy that saves us. Sean Livingston, he can do better than 2 for 5, but you can't rely on Sean Livingston for more than 7 or 8 points. Like, all his shots are that herky-jerky 12-footer that looks like a terrible shot every time, but he seems to make it. So I didn't think Houston played great offensively in Game 4. I thought they played superb, near-perfect defense in Game 4.
Chris, but think about it. You said they combined for, what, 57?
57.
That's more than they average.
Yes.
They usually give you 48. In the regular season,
sure.
You know, and Klay and Steph, that's about
Steph and
give
KD.
You that.
Steph and KD average 55. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Where Steph and Klay are up around, they're around there too. So.
All right, Chris, stick around. We're going to take a break. Coming up, has LeBron James finally hit a wall? Hope we saw a video of that. That's next on First Things First. Early hours, Kris Broussard. Early hours have trained me to power through fatigue. Fame, talent, and success have trained LeBron in his 15th season to do the same thing. The King dropped a game-high 26 last night, but it wasn't enough as the Celtics got the Game 5 win 96-83. LeBron, a little fatigued, a little tired, a little winded, a little respiratory. LeBron and the Cavs now find themselves down 3-2 in this series. Here is an exhausted LeBron James after the game.
I have my moments, but I think everybody at this point is tired, or worn down, or whatever the case may be. But still trying to make plays to help our team win, put us in position to win. And we had moments, we had an opportunity, but we didn't make enough plays.
Look, this is the thing this is the situation, the problem that the Cavs have. They have one player, and everyone else sort of relies on that one player to be absolutely amazing, whether they show up or not, because it's gotten this far. But have they placed too much on LeBron? Is it all finally caught up to him, do you think, Kris Broussard?
Well, he was clearly tired. He even looked tired in the post-game press conference, the way he was talking, his mannerisms. I'm not going to say they don't have enough help because I still think he can get them to the finals. But I'm going to say 2 things. One, this is the worst supporting cast he's had in a team in the conference finals. And I'm talking about 2007, which most people think is one of the worst teams, if not the worst team to get to the finals.
But they were excellent defensively.
Exactly. They were a top 5 defense. You knew you could count on their defense.
Home and away.
Yes. That was their calling card, and then you had LeBron. And they did have 3 double-figure scores in the postseason compared to this team that's got 2. The second thing I want to say, this is an indictment, and I've defended him. I've been a defender of Kevin Love, but this is an indictment on him. He's a perennial All-Star, 5-time All-Star. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer in the future. Some people think he is. Some people have said that they think he'll be in the Hall of Fame. He has given you 15 points a game on 39% shooting. And this is who Kevin Love is in the postseason. That's right in line with his career playoff averages. And I would defend that as a third option when you're not getting the same looks every night.
They're running
Kyrie's
offense
there.
through him sometimes.
Yes, he's your second option now. This is his opportunity to do it and prove that I'm still the Minnesota Kevin Love. I just don't need to score and do as much, and he can't do it.
Right. When they made the trade, Nance Jr., Clarkson, Rodney Hood, George Hill, like we thought that the oldest team in basketball was going to get more athletic. This is not a very, very athletic team. When you remove Rodney Hood from the rotation and he's not playing, and JR, his play is totally suspect. Like, they become less athletic. They can't get up and down the court. This is an offensive-driven team. They got to be able to shoot threes, push the break to be able to generate open threes. So when they don't have that, you can't depend on their defense. You can't go through 82 games. I know we'll talk about, they went through a couple trades. They went through some rotation. But from a philosophy standpoint, it is not their philosophy to play defense. 29th, I'll keep repeating this, in the NBA during the 82-game regular. What do we expect to see in the playoffs? We expect some transformation, that the Cavs are going to be a good defense, and no, they're not a good defense. And this talent, as you mentioned, is, it's almost criminal to see LeBron, that if he decides to take a break or he gets a little winded, that the team has no chance to win.
But the defense, though, while it's been terrible throughout the regular season and not much better in the playoffs, the defense wasn't the problem yesterday. The problem yesterday was the offense.
Yeah,
they would have taken holding Boston to 96 points. Like, the problem is Kevin Love scored 4 points after the first quarter. He had 10 in the first 4 points after. How about this? All the starters, aside from LeBron, after the first quarter, they played 67 minutes. They combined for 13 points. Combined. That's the starting lineup outside of LeBron, quarters 2, 3, and 4. Jordan Clarkson gets in the game. He finds a way to take 10 shots in 15 minutes, because of course he does.
Your second favorite, Cav.
Oh, my God.
But you're not surprised by any of this,
No,
Broussard?
hold on. This is, Jenna, it's one thing to be bad as a supporting cast. It's another. Let me tell you the only times a Cavs supporting cast.
But Jenna's not wrong.
What do you mean?
Because I've been talking about this team
every single
not
day
being a good team all season. So her thing is, are we surprised? No, we're not surprised, Jenna. No. Now, I'm going to tell you what we might be a little surprised. We're surprised. You know what he said in the Pacers series? Kris, you know something? The reason why I'm encouraged is because they can't play worse.
And in Toronto series, that was true. That was true in the Toronto series.
But that didn't end the season. Did they pass off some trophies after that?
No, but I said that if you're going to do that. I said that in response to you saying the Raptors were going to beat the Cavs. And I said if LeBron stays at this level, the supporting cast won't be worse.
I told you in the next series, the also-rans would show up. And that's where we are now. So, Jenna, to answer your question, no, we shouldn't be surprised by this team. No.
Because it was, and I said it right on this show in this chair, it was blind faith in LeBron. That was the only reason to say they're going to get to the finals. That was it. There was nothing we saw on the court outside of those first few days after the trade, right? When the young boys look good, but they just have proven they're not ready for prime time.
Okay, so then I want to go back to something you mentioned yesterday that you've talked a lot about. The Cavs are now down 3-2. They're playing a Boston team that hasn't lost a home game. The supporting cast is playing terribly, right? We all agree. In order for the Cavs to make the finals, it's going to take back-to-back spectacular LeBron James games, including a Game 7 win on the road. Obviously.
Maybe not back-to-back, because the supporting cast has been better at home.
Okay, but LeBron...
He'll have to play great.
LeBron's going to have to play really well in Game 6.
He's going to have to be LeBron.
And then in Game 7, he's going to have to be spectacular. Yet some folks would make the argument it's better for LeBron to lose one of these games. So someone explain that logic to me. Because the argument is the finals record. So you know how LeBron can avoid a finals
The reason why is because regardless of what you want to say about LeBron, this is not golf and this is not tennis. If he was Tiger Woods, that would be the information would be critical. If he was Serena, Venus, man, if he was Federer, Like, we be able to talk about it, but it's not. It's a team sport. LeBron has said that he was chasing Michael Jordan. Did nobody else say that?
But so, hold on. I'm not asking about winning a championship or not winning a championship. How is it better for him to lose before the finals than in the finals? Either way, you don't get the championship.
Because in team sports, they keep track of how many did you win and how many did you lose.
And it doesn't count as a loss by losing before that?
Well, here's the thing, Nick. You know, over time, things get blurry.
Yep.
We don't think about, I'll put it this way, Michael Jordan. First of all, you've brought up, he lost in the first round. He got swept in the first round. He didn't make it his first 6 years. You're the only one that talks about that. Nobody else thinks about, he got beat in the first round. We think about 6-0. And here's the thing. When he came back from baseball and they got beat by Orlando, it actually was better for him not to get to the finals, because I get it.
Then everyone's lost their mind.
You always want to go as far as you can.
Of course.
But when we look back, if they had gotten to the finals and lost to the Houston Rockets, that mystique of Jordan never losing, being 6-0, he'd be 6-1, and it would be worse for his legacy.
Do we all acknowledge how patently illogical that is?
Yeah, I get it.
That the idea that it would have hurt Michael Jordan to win a series against Orlando that he lost, that it's better for his legacy.
Well, in basketball, a star player has proven that they can dominate the game in basketball, not like other sports. So the best players, we have put this on it as far as judging them. We've done it since Wilt. When Wilt couldn't win, Russell passed on to the others, to Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, on to Jordan, who inherited that, Isaiah Thomas.
Does that only apply to the finals, though? That's my question.
In the grand discussion,
because you're saying a great player can power a team to victory.
No, that's what your numbers say with NBA history.
Oh, I agree with you.
Right?
But why are you only applying that to the finals? Why are we not saying when a guy loses in the first round, second round, or third round, a great player would power them to the finals? Every round you win, it is an accomplishment. Every step on the ladder.
You're making sense, Nick. I get where you're coming from. But in the discussion, years from now, nobody's going to be looking at, he got to the second round 8 times.
So then
they're going to be looking at what was your record in the NBA Finals on the biggest stage.
I just want everyone on the record on this. Potentially, for LeBron's legacy, going for 50 last night and putting them in position to win this series would have hurt him. And playing poorly yesterday and losing helps him. That's where we're at.
I'm not going to say that, because maybe Houston wins the West and Cleveland gets there and can upset them.
Assuming they're going to lose in the finals, it would have been bad for LeBron to go for 50 and win the game last night.
I'm just going to tell you, I don't see one little juncture in history where people are going to say 6-0 in the finals is not more significantly better than 3-4, 3-5, 3-6, 3-7.
Well, let me just ask you this, and then we can stop. What would be better for you if LeBron right now, instead of being 3-5 in the finals, is 3-5 more impressive than 3-0? That's my question. If LeBron had only made the finals 3 times, and were the 3 times he won, or what he's done, which is make it 8 times, if those other 5 years he lost in the East, what's more impressive?
More impressive is going 8 times.
Okay.
But it's not more impressive than winning 6.
Okay.
And 3-0 isn't close to 6-0 either. So even if LeBron were 3-0, nobody'd have him above Jordan.
Right. And another reason why, Nick, you're smart. You realize it's the only way to the king. Like, you got to talk about the totality, because your record is already blemished.
Of course, so you record's already blemished. But
you can't let that part of the road go.
People have to stop acting like Jordan played 6 years in the league. He played 15. So, like, if
he was hurt 1. The last 2, he was 40 years old.
Okay. All right. So fine. Then
1, he was baseball.
Are going to leave it there. But you know who's someone who can talk about basketball and all its merits and awards?
Now, I remember seeing him in high school.
All NBA All-Star Amar'e Stoudemire. Hey, Amar'e. How are you?
What's up, fellas?
How are you?
Welcome back to First Things First. Oh, and once again, we're getting more tall people on the show. That's just what we do. 6'10", Amar'e Stoudemire. What's up, Amar'e?
My guy, everything's good?
It's good, man. It's been a long time.
It has been.
You watched him in high school?
Yes. Oh, my gosh. Him and Moses Malone. Forget Michael Jordan. Him and Moses Malone were 2 guys I saw in high school, and I was like, why aren't they playing the NBA? Well, they're not eligible yet. Oh, they're going to be going the next year. Yes.
And that's so the first time I ever saw Amar'e, it was not in person, but it was on 60 Minutes, when you were in high school as this phenom getting ready to go to the NBA. It's great to meet you, man.
Thanks, guys.
We are
Thanks for
excited
having
to
me.
finally have you on our show. So thanks so much for being here. Amar'e, you spent 14 seasons in the NBA. For a fan, there is nothing like a matchup like the one we're watching in the West. Rockets and Warriors, all tied up at 2 games apiece after Houston stole that road win on Tuesday. The series now goes back to Houston tonight for Game 5. You've been watching all this unfold. What do you expect to see in this one?
Tonight, Game 5. Oh, it's gonna be a good one. You know, Game 5, obviously one of the most important games of a series, of 7-game series. They say 85% of the guys who win, the teams that win Game 5 win the series.
Yep.
I think Golden State's going to be victorious tonight. I think they're going to be too much for them at home.
So Mike D'Antoni, obviously, is a guy you have a lot of experience with. He's coach of the Rockets. He's been criticized some this postseason, this series in particular, for just basically saying we're going to do what we do. We're not making a ton of adjustments. Like, we're going to continue being who we are. What is in the playoffs? What does he like to play for? What that even-keeled approach? I think it was a similar demeanor he had in Phoenix. How does that help? How does that possibly hurt? What does he like to play for?
Well, I think it's definitely a similar demeanor where he's, the way he's coaching now in the playoffs than when he did with us in Phoenix. But yeah, it's always with us. We had a floor general, with Steve Nash, and so he was able to allow Nash to somewhat control the game, and we all followed our point guard's lead from that point of view. And I think now he feels the same way with James Harden, with Chris Paul, and these guys who have the savviness and also the experience to control the game. I think he's allowing them to play and to read the game on how the game's being played.
Yeah, you have history with both of these coaches. Nick brings up a very good time that you had there in Phoenix. Also there in Phoenix was Steve Kerr. A lot of people don't realize that.
Sure.
As a general manager, it was short. Their relationship was, say, they couldn't get along. They had some different philosophy. How impressed are you with Steve Kerr after seeing him in the front office, now seeing him one of NBA's elite coaches?
Well, when Steve Kerr was our GM in Phoenix, it was such a great situation for us. As players, we truly enjoyed having him around. Coach D'Antoni was our head coach at the time, and everything was flowing perfectly. And as a GM, he did a phenomenal job for us. And so he actually gave me so much motivation to win championships. I would talk to him about Michael Jordan. I want to hear the stories about the greats. And so it was awesome. But to see him now as a head coach and what he's doing now with the Warriors, I didn't see it coming. He's doing a remarkable job with the organization.
Speaking of things you didn't see coming, LeBron James is basically having the, year of his career in the last 15 years. You played, you know what he's like. You played when you thought maybe a couple years ago he was in his prime. How surprised are you that he's still playing at the top of his game right now?
It's impressive. It really is to be 15, 16 years in just about, and to be playing at that level of excellence every single night. And the NBA season is such a long season. You have preseason, you have, the regular season and the playoffs. And this guy's been playing every year going into the finals, and he takes no time off, And so to see him still playing at a high level at this age is remarkable.
You were the Rookie of the year before LeBron got to the league, and then he won Rookie of the Year. So, you guys were contemporaries. There was a period in time where you guys were both top 5 MVP. Like, people, I think maybe some of the younger audience doesn't know, before your injury, you were one of the dominant forces in the league. Steve Nash gets the focus from those Suns teams, but that doesn't exist without you hammering on folks and without some of the battles you guys went through against San Antonio. When you look back to your run in Phoenix, do you think about how great it was, or do you think about some of the injuries, or to Joe Johnson, he breaks his face when you guys could have won the title? The suspension, when Robert Horry gets a hip check Steve Nash, you guys could have won the title. What's your feeling on that era of your career in Suns basketball?
When I look back at it, I always look at it from a positive point of view, because we had so much fun playing. We transcended the game of basketball. When Coach D'Antoni said, "Hey, Amar'e, instead of you playing power forward now, I want you to play center." And at first I was like, there's no way. I'm only 245. I got to guard Shaq every night. And then once I made the adjustment of playing center, then that 7 seconds or less offense kicked in. It was just like, it was so much fun. We felt like rock stars on the road. The game was easy, and it was beautiful to play.
When you say you transcended basketball, you also changed the way it's played. Like, can you
Yes.
when he first brought to you guys that style? Now everyone's doing it. Everyone's going small. Everyone's trying to play at a pace. Everyone's taking a bunch of threes. You guys and like the Nuggets of the late '80s were the only teams that had ever actually done it. How hard was the adjustment? How fun? Like, can you tell people that don't remember how different it was compared to the way other teams were playing?
You know, it took a slight adjustment, but we had players on the team that were very fast and quick in their position. For myself at the center position, Sean Marion was playing the power forward, which he was a natural small forward, and Steve Nash, who was a soccer player who just does not get tired. So when the ball is thrown in bounds, he's already gone, and so when he's gone, you got to keep up with him. And so over time, throughout training camp and practice, we were able to somewhat adapt to that speed of play, and then when the season started, we just hit the ground running. And it was perfect.
You look like you're in tremendous shape. You're a guy that's always done some cutting-edge things from a nutrition standpoint. You got any more basketball in you?
Yeah, I do actually. I mean,
really?
I played last year.
Right, I know that, but like moving forward, is basketball still on your mind? And if it is on your mind, where do we look to see you potentially playing next year?
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, basketball is definitely on my mind. I'm training like you wouldn't believe at the moment, and so I keep myself in shape. But I'm also playing the Big Three, which is a cool situation for me to kind of somewhat stay in shape. And then I'm just preparing to see if I can make a comeback to the NBA. But we'll see.
So you still have NBA aspirations? Because I think I
had read that, but I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if my source was good enough. A lot of times my sources a little sketchy.
But I mentioned when you walked in, you said you were playing at 245. What do you weigh now? You seem thin, like you seem cut up, but thinner than I remember you at your playing weight. That's intentional, it seems.
For sure. My goal is to be as light as possible, but as strong as I can be. So right now I'm at about 235, 238, but I feel like my strength is the same as it was back when I played.
What advantage does the Amar'e that's sitting here now have over the guy in that graphic behind you?
Well,
because if you're going to come back and play, I'm just curious. Sometimes smarts, sometimes just knowing the game better, anticipating all that stuff actually helps out more than just being super, super young and athletic.
Oh, for sure. I mean, to have the IQ of the game now at this level is important, you know, to know how to play the game, how the game is played on both ends of the court. And then also just the leadership qualities that's needed right now with the young players is important as well.
And the red wine baths, right? That's the rejuvenation for you.
Wait, tell us about it.
The red wine baths. Yeah, when I played here with the Knicks, I go to the spa and they have this feature there that's a red wine bath, and I would go there and just indulge in the red wine.
But you're out on that now? No more?
No, I still go, yeah.
Okay,
whenever I get a chance to.
All right, yeah.
Sure.
He's doing more drinking of it now. Yeah, before he was just, it was the fountain of youth.
I've been told to ask about your passion project that you're working on right now. Talk to us a little bit about it, Amar'e.
Well, we got a few passion projects. Right now I'm in the art space, so I'm an art collector. I do a lot of things with the company Sotheby's in the art space. And then also, as far as the wine's concerned, I just released a collection of wines. The vineyards are out in Israel. The cellars in Israel, but we sell the wines in New York, New Jersey, and Miami. And so, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts happening.
Like, look at you, just like a slice of culture that decided to come in. You're a little company called Sotheby's. I don't know if you've heard of that company. I have my own vineyard in Israel. Like, how fancy are you?
One of your friends in Israel who took care of my wife and I when we were there, and he also directed us to someone you might know there in Jerusalem, and we brought back a piece of art. From Jerusalem. I have it here in my apartment.
Very cool.
An amazing piece of art. And a lot of that has to do with you and your relationship.
Sure. That's awesome.